Hey everyone, welcome to the first episode of All the Things. I have with me Stephen Campbell, the CTO of Revamp AI, and I also have Ashton Mendes, software engineer from Square. Welcome, Stephen and Ashton.
Thank you for having us,
Thanks, Praveen.
Praveen.
Yeah, this just logistically, I think you guys made this look so easy. I don't think we talked directly. It was just emails and text messages.
Yep.
So thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy week and just spending time with me. So quick introductions, Stephen, 30 seconds. What do you do and what is Revamp AI?
Definitely. Yeah. So I'm Stephen Campbell, Campbell like the soup. I am the CTO and co-founder of Revamp AI. We were in Y Combinator's summer 23 batch. We're still growing now. It's definitely in the 0 to 1 phase, but I think that's the most interesting time to have a company. Additionally, I'm also the co-founder of the Gen AI Collective, which is the Bay Area's largest AI community. We are now on our path to becoming the United States' largest AI community. We have a new chapter in New York City, the North Bay, and soon to be the South Bay. So, lots to talk about with generative AI, lots to talk about with startups. Really excited to be here.
Hey, everyone. My name is Ashton Mendes. I was born and raised in Mumbai, India. Moved to the US for my master's degree in 2014, and since then I've been working as a software engineer for the past 8 years. Currently, I'm working as a software engineer at Square. Happy to be here.
Hey, welcome, Aston. Thank you. We'll delve into our professional journeys and what we do on a day-to-day basis. But before that, I want to know more about your background, your childhood and where you grew up. And I know Ashton mentioned he grew up in Mumbai. What about you, Stephen?
Yeah, definitely. I can give a little overview. So, I was born an only child, which I think was very instrumental in like me becoming who I am today. There's a lot of benefits and also challenges to being an only child, that I think, can either make or break you. Hopefully they've made me. I grew up in Virginia, so right outside Washington, D.C. It was an interesting place to grow up because all of my friends' parents and pretty much the entire town I grew up in was connected to the US government. So people were defense contractors or lobbyists or, sometimes even like senators. That was the people I grew up with. And, for me, I didn't really enjoy that community that much. I don't really like, politics. It's just not an interest of mine. And so, for me, the goal was always, okay, I'm in Virginia. How do I get out of Virginia? And I want to go to the West Coast to join the startup community. Growing up, movies like The Social Network were really impactful for me. That was like my dream of how I wanted my life to be. So even from like a young age, I would say like 10, 11, 12 years old, my goal was like, how do I get out of Virginia? How do I get away from DC? And how do I move to the West Coast where everyone's, building the technology the rest of the world gets to use? So the first step on my journey there was my high school. So I was really fortunate to grow up in an area with one of the best science high schools in the world. It's called Thomas Jefferson High School for Science and Technology. My freshman year, we were the first high school, I think, in like the world's history to have a satellite in orbit. I remember walking in on my first day and there's like DNA sequencing machines and 3D printers, and there were like photon visualize. It was absurd. I still do not fully comprehend just how incredible of an opportunity it was. And that just furthered my interest in startups, in technology. We were doing pretty high level CS classes starting at like 13 and 14 years old. Took a bunch of robotics classes. So technology was just always on my mind. I was surrounded by a group of people who, thankfully, I'm still surrounded by. Like, I'm still friends with a lot of my friends from high school, and we're all just super passionate about building out technology. And so from high school, I took my next step to get a little closer to my goal of the Bay Area and technology, which is I went to college, and I was fortunate to go to USC. And that's where I met Praveen, because my junior year at USC was really impactful for me. I was supposed to intern at Visa. I don't know how much of this you remember, Praveen, but I was supposed to intern at Visa.
I do.
Pandemic hit. It was 2020. And then Visa gave quite possibly the greatest offer in human history, which was they were paying us that summer. I got paid that summer, but I didn't have to do any work. It was literally, Praveen, I think the work was optional. Like I had an onboarding buddy, but there was nothing to onboard me onto. And so I don't know if you have any insight. I'd love to hear it from your side, but that was my perspective. I was basically paid to do nothing.
Okay,
I
I
think
wouldn't say. Yeah, go ahead, Ashton.
if I remember correctly, Stephen, I think myself and one of my other colleagues actually interviewed you. And I remember talking with my colleague, and I was like, this guy is overqualified for this internship. What is he really looking for? So I think that what you said just now, I think kind of made sense in the context of that.
So I was curious about this, right? Whether you guys met each other at all
I
during your
don't
time in
remember,
visa.
no, don't
No.
remember meeting Stephen at all. Maybe like just over like Skype or something, I might have said hi, or like
Okay.
just some onboarding stuff I might have helped with. I don't think if he remembers, but yeah, it's good to see you after so many years again.
I was wondering if Ashton was your intern buddy. That was an unusual year. And I think we met on campus right before that semester. And I remember vividly, speaking to probably 300, 400 students through the day. And that was the case. Every time we'd go to USC, there used to be a huge turnout. USC does a phenomenal job of getting all the employers on their campus for campus interviews. Have that conversation stuck out somehow, and I don't think we talked about a lot of like technical stuff, but just the passion that you had around payments. And I could tell, you had very different ways of thinking about tech and how to put tech to good use. I don't think we went through like a formal interview process even eventually with you, Stephen. Yeah.
Yeah, I appreciate you remembering. Yeah, I was super interested in payments at the time because I had an internship the previous summer where I built out like a payout system. It was for more of like a gig economy startup where they had to pay out workers, and I like did something with Stripe to like handle their payouts for them. But yeah, I was super excited to intern at Visa. I thought the team was interesting. I believe it was the Visa Risk Manager team.
Yep.
I think what interested me was the transaction volume at Visa, and just that data set I found interesting. And so I was super excited to work at Visa, but COVID kind of cut that short. So I basically had a blank check for the summer, and was financed through Visa, but had no work. And so it was around that time that one of my best friends called. He's from my high school. We've been best friends since. And he was like, "Hey, do you want to start a tech consulting company this summer?" I was like, "Yeah, I'm not doing anything better. Let's start a tech consulting company." And so it was that summer with kind of my seed funding from Visa. And this is a theme that repeated later on in my life with an employer giving me basically seed funding. I can get into that later, but Visa basically gave me seed funding to start my tech consulting company, and that really took off. We had a bunch of clients. We started out small. Started out with kind of friends who had startups and needed tech work and would just do small contracts, and eventually grew that and had contractors working for us. And it was my first real taste of entrepreneurship. So I'm really lucky to say that Visa basically funded my first company, which was just, it's hilarious to think about in retrospect.
So, Aston, what about you? How's your journey been? Well, let's talk about how we know each other.
Yeah, sure. So first of all, Visa was my first job after college. So it was like it'll always be like a special
Yes, for
moment
you.
in my career. Yeah. Yeah, I think Praveen joined Visa about a year after me, and then we worked together for God knows how many years, yeah, 3 or 4, more than that. We've been, I think, even after leaving Visa, I think our team has stayed in touch. So kind of the personal aspect was also something that I cherish today. And of course, yeah, Stephen also was part of the team for a short while, but I didn't really get to interact much with him.
Yeah, and I definitely know when I met Ashton for the first time, I think he's a very quiet person, but at the same time, he's probably one of the smartest engineers that I've worked with.
He's just
I
saying that.
don't know. No, I mean it, right? And so, Stephen, Ashton is a Rubik's Cube enthusiast.
Oh my, okay.
That's
I know
very
exactly what kind of engineer you are. That's good. That's good.
yeah. So
If you're ever looking to switch careers, come find me.
Yeah, still have it, by the way.
yeah, there you go. So just fascinating to just see him work that thing in like a matter of seconds, and it's quite impressive. All right, so let's switch gears a little bit. I want to talk a little bit more about your professional journeys. This episode is special because I get a ton of messages on LinkedIn every day from new college grads, kids that are just getting ready to finish school, or they have recently graduated. You have gone through this journey, and I've been um, lucky to be part of some of that. But I really wanted the audience to kind of, get a sense of what that was for you both, just graduating from USC or even your undergrad, then how you kind of navigated that to where you two are today.
Sure, I can start. So I graduated from my undergrad in 2012. So to back up a bit, I think my first career choice wasn't a software engineer, to be honest. I was always fascinated with like astronomy, solar system, stars, universe, black holes, that kind of thing. But then I realized like for some reasons it didn't work out. And then I think I was always good with computers in a way. My first experience with programming was back in I think seventh or eighth grade. We had like this programming language called Logo at the time. It used to come with like a graphical user interface, and then you could program like a triangular cursor to like draw shapes on the UI. So that was kind of my first foray into kind of programming. But then after I completed my high school, that's when I really thought about this being as like a profession, because that's when I started learning about like the basic CS fundamentals, um, programming in C++, Java, that kind of thing. And yeah, I think as part of my undergrad coursework, I worked on like a couple of projects. One of them being like a mobile app, Android app that's actually still in the App Store today. Has like 1 million plus downloads today. Uh,
Wow.
but yeah, that's kind of my experience coming into this kind of into the software industry. After graduation, like after my undergrad, I joined like a consulting company. But I think that is when I had like a tough time, um, because like I was trained on a number of things, but didn't really get an opportunity to actually work on something similar to your experience, Stephen. I think at Visa, where like you were just paid to do nothing basically. So I had like a similar experience, but then that's when I started thinking of like moving to the US for like better opportunities for myself, and also like seeking a better life basically.
Did you
And
work after your undergrad? Did you work after
Yes,
your
I did
undergrad?
for a couple of years. Yeah, but again, it's like just work experience on paper, but didn't really like get an opportunity to like use my skills to like apply to some practical problems. Yeah, then like Stephen, I also went to USC, so we have that connection there as well. Yeah, I graduated in 2016, but of course, like it was a different time compared to what it is today. But yeah, I think the one thing I would say is that like opportunities are sometimes scarce, but when they do arise, you have to be like prepared to grab them by both hands. That's basically what I did. Like I had a couple of interviews, I remember, but then visa came along, and I was able to get through that. And then yeah, after that, I think it's been more of like career development. What do I want to do next? Finding like a kind of role that fits what I'm interested in, that kind of thing. But yeah, definitely like fresh out of college, it's very it's a difficult time all you can do is like work hard and then wait for your opportunity to come.
I agree. Yeah, especially for international students, I would say. I believe you have a founder, right, Stephen, that is also an immigrant. I remember, when I came to the US for the first 2 weeks, I had no idea. Like, I did not even get out of the apartment. Just got out of the small town. I come from a tier 3 city in India, so that was my first time just getting out of the country. And you're absolutely right. You sometimes don't know how to navigate that, and you just have to learn it the hard way. Stephen, speaking of your co-founder, how did you meet Amin?
Well, we've known each other for about 3 years now, and Amin and I met through mutual friends. So one of the nice things about going to kind of a sciencey high school is that my friends from high school are all like pretty geographically dispersed. And so I had a bunch of friends at the University of Michigan, and Amin also went to the University of Michigan. So, he became friends with them. And then, it was just natural that we would all meet when a bunch of us ended up in the Bay Area after college. I think it's that serendipity of being in the Bay Area, especially right after college, that just leads to meeting those people, meeting your future co-founder. It's easy when you're in the Bay Area for sure.
Mm-hmm. How was YC like?
It was definitely interesting. The process to getting to YC was very difficult. I think I definitely lost a few years off my lifespan just due to the stress of that period of time. I can kind of walk you through what we were going through. So, we started Revamp, and we started with what we thought was a great idea, but in retrospect, it was like the worst idea ever. We started out with a chatbot. So you have to think of the times when this was happening. We kind of have a floating start date of when we started working on this, but roughly speaking, February of 2023 is really when we kind of began in earnest. And our idea was to make a chatbot for your e-commerce store. So sellers of direct to consumer brand owners could integrate Shopify and integrate Klaviyo, and then we would essentially provide text to SQL through a chat interface against your store's information. So you could ask, what were my sales yesterday, and type that in, and it would sometimes give you the right answer. It was pretty hit or miss. But we were really bullish on our idea. We thought it was great, and we tried to get some customers, had difficulty getting paying customers, and when we had trouble getting customers, we were like, oh, we know what to do. We'll just raise money, which also was like a terrible idea. That's a worse idea than the chatbot, I would say, is going out to raise money. So thankfully, around this time I had started the Gen AI Collective, and so I knew a ton of VCs across the valley. And so we were in a very fortunate position where we were able to pitch to I think 34 VCs with our chatbot idea, which was pretty crazy because before founding the collective, I knew 0 VCs. So that was just a great position to be in the first place. And we definitely refined our pitch, but it was such a garbage idea. You can guess how much was invested in us. It was $0. No one wanted a piece of Revamp at the time. And so our last ditch effort was to apply to YC. That was we're going to put all of our chips on this one bet of getting into Y Combinator. And, we knew the odds were bad. I think it was less than 2% or less than 1%. It's just terrible odds. But we locked ourselves in our room for 3 days and just worked on the application. And my co-founder showed up with nothing but a suitcase, and I was living in a studio apartment. So our room was my tiny studio apartment in SF that we were both living in. It was terrible. It was I would, you can guess how bad it was. It was pretty tough. And then, by just a miracle, we got an interview, and that blew our minds, because I think only 10% of people get interviews, or 5%. It was a very big filter, and we were so ecstatic that we passed it. And so then we started preparing for the interview, and that's a whole process. I mean, it's like a ceremony almost entrepreneurs have to go through. There's all these things we all do. You reach out to your friends who have done YC, and they try to replicate the interview process. Or there's this funny web app you guys should check out. It's called IPG, or I Paul Graham. And it simulates Paul Graham asking you questions about your startup, how did you and your co-founder meet? And, what's your ICP, and all this other stuff. And so we prepped for the interview. Interview comes on, and, you're scheduled for the interview at a specific time. And of course they're late. So we're just like sitting in front of our crappy webcam for half an hour waiting for it to start. And then our interviewees hop on and it would be your future group partners. So it was Rich Aberman and Harj Tagger. And it was crazy because as a high schooler, I was like a super nerd into startups. So I was watching Y Combinator, like, how to find PMF and like, here's what your MVP should look like, videos that Harj did. And so it was like meeting one of your heroes and then your hero just shitting on your startup idea. Like the interview, we didn't think it went well at all. They were like, you don't understand your customer, you don't understand your problem. And it goes by in the blink of a second. Like we had a whole laundry list of bullet points. We called them vertebrae that we wanted to discuss to showcase that we, were competent. Didn't get to like any of them basically. And so we thought we bombed the interview. It ends. We were at rock bottom. And so there was a liquor store next door. And we started walking over to the liquor store and we were like, we're not going to get into Y Combinator. We'll just drink ourselves to death tonight. So we go to the liquor store, buy a ton of booze. We're walking back with it. It's super heavy. Amin got a call and I should remember this. I don't remember if it was Rich or Harj. I think it was Rich. And they asked like, hey, we'd love to offer you a spot in the latest Y Combinator batch. And like I started crying. Amin was like screaming in Urdu. It was like one of the greatest moments of my life. And we thought we had made it, and that was like so far from the case. Like it just gets more difficult and harder, and you get to lower points that you didn't think existed. But just that moment was pretty surreal.
Was that still the original idea that you had started with, the chatbot idea, or did you have to pivot along the way before the pitch?
We've pivoted. Well, so we kind of go through a process where we're in denial that we have to pivot. Like whenever we've pivoted a few times now, and every time it's like you go through like the 5 stages of grief, but it's the 5 stages of like accepting that you have to pivot. And like the first one is we would always say to ourselves, we're not pivoting, we're niching down. And so we'd be like, it's like a niche down. We're just, and it's always a pivot. But the first pivot was at the Y Combinator retreat. So they fly out as soon as the batch starts. Everyone flies out to Sonoma and they take over this like luxury resort. It's like so much fun. And it's like Coachella, but for entrepreneurs. It's just a bunch of startup founders. They're all in this beautiful setting of a vineyard. And it was there that we saw all these amazing people in our batch, highly accomplished people, frankly speaking, more accomplished than us, better schools, better backgrounds and everything. And they were all pivoting too. So when you see your peer group also going through something, it makes it a lot easier for us to pivot. And we did our first pivot, which was switching to being a customer segmentation tool. And so that was basically, helping brands identify high value customer segments that they should be sending specific like email marketing to, as opposed to the kind of like the spray and pray approach that brands currently exhibit. And that was a pretty fruitful pivot. We actually got people to pay for that. Still couldn't get people to use it, but it was a step function increase over the chatbot for sure.
So where can the audience find your product? Can you tell them how to get there?
Yep, it's you can find us at getrevamp.ai or you can find me on LinkedIn. That's frankly how like most of our customers find us, is just by reaching out directly over LinkedIn. Yeah, happy to chat with anyone with e-commerce brand.
All right. So, 2 interesting perspectives in this episode. One is you took the entrepreneurial route, Stephen, and Ashton took the corporate route. So I want to kind of switch gears a little bit. I want to know from Ashton how his experience has been kind of navigating through different companies and what was the interview process like. Take us back to your visa experience. I think that was the first one right after you graduated from USC, right? So take us through that experience.
So I think different companies do interviews differently, but I think most companies they'll have what's called programming interview where you're like given a problem and you have to like come up with a solution. Basically, work with your interviewer to come towards a meaningful solution. It doesn't have to be perfect, but you have to be able to like walk through your thought process, come up with a list of different options for the solution, and then you kind of go back and forth on like what are the trade-offs that you want to make. and so forth. So I think that's one part of the interview process. Then the other one is basically like system design. So you'll be asked to design a system like a URL shortener, or like design Dropbox or design Instagram, something like that. And then you have to apply basic CS fundamentals and your knowledge of how systems are built in coming up with a design that fulfills most of the requirements that the interviewer has. So I think this was very much different from the kind of interviews that I gave when I was looking for a job after my undergraduate back in India. So I think that was a big learning curve to understand the interview process, what interviewers are looking for, and kind of at the end of the day, it's a skill in its own, so which you have to practice and get better at. So yeah, I faced a lot of rejections uh, interviewing at different companies. Then finally made it at Visa, and then I had to move like from California to Texas to join the team here. The other side of it is like once you go through the interview process and all of that, the kind of work that you do day to day is like very different from the kind of skills you are evaluated against during your interview. That's my opinion, at least, because you're like you don't write like complex algorithms every day at work. You don't design systems from the ground up every time. Those opportunities are like very few. But then you also have to be able to be good at interfacing with different stakeholders at work. For example, what is the product manager looking for? What is the goal of the system that you are building? What are the trade-offs you're making? What are your target customers? Like who's going to be using this product? And then there's of course skills that like the tech stack that you're using at the company. So that's a bit of a learning curve as well. Um, and also like the corporate world in general, like how do you present stuff? How do you build relationships with different people at the company, different stakeholders? How do you impact? How do you build impact? How do you market yourself, build your own brand? These kind of skills are also necessary, is what I learned. And then, of course, it's also important to know what you want for yourself as you advance in your career. Like, is the role that you're in at the right fit for you? Does it have a good mix of like work-life balance and all of that? Are you learning something new every day? That's very important. And I think at Visa, my journey was like a bit mixed. At the beginning, it was very slow. Um, I felt like I was not doing enough every day. There was not much stuff to do. Um, uh, but then, as I got like a bit of experience, I kind of started reaching out to my leads. So I remember having multiple conversations with Praveen on like, what can I do more? Like, how can I make a bigger impact? And that's when I think Praveen was very helpful in helping me get like the right opportunities and the right projects to work on. Um, and yeah, so I mean, in your day-to-day work, you learn a lot of things, just basic things like writing unit tests or how to use this IDE in the best way that's possible to improve your productivity, and like learning about different technologies out there, like how do you write a backend, how do you build a UI, how do you make calls to a Redis cache, stuff like that. So I think it's important that you're making sure that you learn something new every day and you're making progress. And that's one thing that I was not able to do much at Visa as I like got more experience. Wasn't seeing myself progressing too much, and I think that's also important as an engineer. You need to know when it is time to move on for yourself as well as like for your career. And that's when I started interviewing, and this was during the pandemic as well. So my son was just born. So it was a difficult time for me also personally to get used to being a father and then balancing work and my personal life, along with looking for a career change. Started interviewing around 2021, 22, and then that's when I was able to join Square.
Few things there that were really relatable, and I thought kind of important to highlight. Like, definitely, I can relate to the different interview process for like the work you actually do.
Mm-hmm.
I faced a very similar thing at Airtable where the interview process was actually pretty good. I think it was like visas where there were like some interesting systems design questions, and then you show up on day one and it's just like, at least for me, I don't know if you faced this, Ashton, but at least for me, it was just like changing colors of buttons and like working on like the worst
Mm.
features. Like I had to like add like a rich text component. Was that kind of your experience? Am I understanding that correctly, Ashton?
I think it depends on the kind of team that you're in as well. Like, for example, on my team, Praveen's team, we had like both front end and back end components. So I started most of my time at Visa, I was like working on like back end stuff. But yeah, even like there are some very boring back end tasks, I can say, that are not very fun. I think everyone has to go through that once at least,
Yeah,
kind of understanding what different things are out there, and then just kind of knowing what you like and what you don't like.
exactly.
Um, one of the hardest jobs for a leader is to find fun work, right, for every team member, especially new team members, because there is so much excitement and just fascination around all the new things that I get to use and try as part of a new job. And then you come in and you're like, okay, to change this text box or add validation to make sure it can take numbers. But at the same time, that's also part of the onboarding process, right? It's you have to kind of learn some of those chops along the way until you can get to a level of engineering maturity. My 2 cents there would be to kind of spend time learning initially, right? Especially knowing who your stakeholders are, knowing what the business is, knowing who does what, even, right? A lot of times in a big company, it takes years to figure out what group does what things. So my advice usually when especially new college grads come on board is to spend the majority of their first year just doing discovery, right? Just trying to understand how things fit and where do I fit in this ecosystem, right? In fact, not too long ago, I had this conversation with someone on my team. Hey, there is so much legacy stuff here. Why can't we just rewrite this whole thing, right? That's a very typical pattern. But now, if you
I
have
might have said that to you many times.
probably, and it is very frustrating, right? As a developer, it's very difficult to deal with something that you were not part of, and you had to inherit, and it's messy and it's hard to understand. But for companies, it is a big shift to move from those kinds of systems to something modern. There's cost associated, there is the why as well, right? Who's going to pay for it? Okay, from a value proposition standpoint, I'm going to get the exact same thing but in a more modern tech stack. As a business person, why do I want to fund that project, right? So I think what has really worked well with the teams that I work with is just kind of taking this um, brownfield to greenfield approach, your typical strangler pattern, right? Okay, let's find out the biggest pain points, prioritize them, and slowly chip away by just being patient, right? And then there is stuff that you don't want to move, things that don't matter. It's better to just leave them behind. Anyway, let's continue on that topic. I know there are lots of students that are getting ready to graduate that are curious about how they want to approach interviewing and their first job, specifically. Ashton, let's say the first year or so, how was that, and how did you start? How did you graduate to becoming a more seasoned and mature engineer?
So probably my first year, I think as you enter the workforce, one of the first things, like as we've been talking about, to do when you join a new company is to just get familiar with the product, get familiar with the business, like you mentioned. But I think at the same time, it's also important to have a mentor on your side that's able to like help you navigate the journey and the different intricacies of software engineering and the company in general. I think that's very important. I think I could relate to many things that you said, Praveen, about not understanding what part of the organization does what. And I think I was basically missing the big picture at that time. What does our team do? Where do we fit into like visas, business, and then how are we impacting our clients and all of that? I think I was very hazy on all those concepts. But yeah, just I think I had a lot of mentors that helped me through that, which definitely helped. But some of it is also your own drive, how much you want to learn, how much you want to get out of your comfort zone and pick up challenging tasks. I think that's when you'll like learn most of the stuff that's important to know. Especially like with things like system design and all of that. You like new college grads like shouldn't be scared to like pick up challenging tasks, even if it involves like changing the design of like a core system component. Of course, you have to have guidance and you have to have like a second pair of eyes at all times, mentoring you and just double checking your work and giving you feedback. I think that's very important. But yeah, at the same time, you have to be able to like challenge yourself and be able to pick up these kind of things. And that's where the learning comes from. Like when things go wrong on production or when you break some core component, that's when you'll have the most learning, is what I feel.
So, do you think that's when some of those problem solving skills that you have to go through during your interview process, do they come in handy then?
I think so. Yeah, your like, critical thinking ability and how you communicate, I think is very important in situations like that. Like when the mood is very tense and you have to like think out loud sometimes about what could possibly solve this problem and make things better, and also like understanding the trade-offs. I think the some soft skills are also important there. If you don't put yourself in those situations, then it's very difficult to like, learn and get better.
Yeah, the fastest way to get onboarded is to go troubleshoot a production issue. You will get to learn so many things as part of that, right?
Yeah, agree.
I just read this thing this morning. Kevin Norton has a newsletter, right? And he's talking about the difference between a good engineer and a great engineer. So, a good engineer has good technical chops, but a great engineer has good technical chops, which is kind of the table stakes, but also good soft skills, good influencing skills, right? So I think that's
Yep.
kind of the aspects that don't get taught in colleges. Those are the things that you want to develop early on in your career. So, Stephen, you must be hiring people as you grow revamp. So, what are some of the things that you look for in a potential new hire?
I think there's a correct answer, I think here. And I'm happy to go into that. And then there's also the answer that led to our first hire. And so I can kind of go into both because they're very different and I think they're both equally interesting. So I think for us at the startup level, you know, the biggest thing we look for is just the ability to have agency and take initiative. None of us know what we're doing. Like no one in a startup is prepared to do the tasks that they have to do ahead of time. So it's really all about your ability to come into a situation where you have limited context, limited skills even to accomplish it and find some way to make it work, right? Like one day we might be setting up data pipelines. The next day we might be moving offices and you might literally need to be carrying tables between them. So everything in between is is also fair game. So for us, when we started looking for our first hires, it was all about how can we judge someone's ability to have agency. And the way we went about that was kind of interesting, where we concocted basically an onsite, and it was to do an entire project from scratch. So it was ideation and product thinking at the initial part, kind of taking in the product problem statement. We do like a role play scenario where me and my co-founder would be potential customers, and then the new hire, and this is for an engineering role, right? Like this is not an expressly customer facing role, but would have to like interview the stakeholders and ask questions about the problem, and then they would have to design out the system. And so like what's, what database are we using? What backend are we using? How are they going to connect, et cetera? And then develop a small piece of it from scratch. So, a broader system, and then, maybe you would just do like the data pipelining part during the day. So that was how we would try to determine someone's agency. In terms of how we actually got to our first hire, I would say the biggest contributing factor was just serendipity. So I run, the Gen AI Collective. We do a lot of events that are attended by a lot of software engineers. And it just so happened that our first engineering hire, Shin, he and I just happened to chat, and he was looking for his next role, had incredible experience, seemed like a fantastic person. Like we just hit it off. And so I think the correct answer is like work on your agency and develop your skill set in problem solving. But I think the kind of secondary answer here is if you can put yourself in situations that lead to serendipity, whether it's attending events or networking or, meeting that person for a coffee chat that you were kind of on the fence about, the more situations you can put yourself in that lead to serendipity, the better. So kind of two sides of an interesting question.
That's a great answer. I know probably that's how every interview should be like for an engineer, even whether you are an
Definitely.
engineer, product manager. I feel at this point, you really want someone to have that kind of agency and be well-rounded. If you've read Marty Kagan's latest book, Transformed, he talks about the product operating model, and it has a lot to do with your ability to do more than just one thing, right? So if you're an engineer, you need to understand how your product works. If you're a designer, you need to understand some of the engineering pain points, right? If you're a product manager, you need to understand all aspects of it, right? Especially how you're going to go sell this product. And what I really see happen many times is there's just all these departmental silos, right? You have all these layers. In fact, many a times I've seen product managers don't even know how the product makes money. An engineer doesn't know what a customer does with that product and how it is being used, right? So
Yep.
I think you bring up a very good point. Ashton, just going back to your time, starting out your new job during the COVID years. And since then, a lot of jobs have become remote first or some sort of a hybrid. Now, there are lots of companies that are asking people to come back into the office for a few days in a week even. How has your experience been? I believe you are still remote for the most part. How do you compare that with your experience at Visa? Have there been pros and cons to that?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, at Visa, it was, most of my time at Visa was before the pandemic, so there was no concept of like, at least not broadly, there was no broad concept of like working remotely. So I was like every day in the office. Uh, and then now I'm completely working remotely. So I've definitely seen like both sides. I think each has its own pros and cons. Especially now, like with a 4-year-old at home, I like appreciate the kind of flexibility you have with remote work, where you can like, uh, if he's not feeling well, if I need to pick him up early or something like that, I can just, be away for some time and then get back to work. Which is, I think, with a bit more difficult if you're like traveling to your workplace every day. But then the other side of it is, I think when you have a place to go to do your work, there's like a clear boundary between home and work. Like your personal life and your professional life are kind of subconsciously separated. But I think that line becomes very blurry when you're like working from home. Some of the things I've struggled with is like knowing when my work stops and like my private life starts, and that was a challenge for me at least. I would end up many times keeping on thinking about work even like after I've like logged off and done for the day, and then that affects your like mental health because like your brain is not completely shut off from work. You're like constantly thinking about did I do this or did I complete that task that I was supposed to do. So yeah, that's one thing I've struggled with. But I think one thing that helps with that is like having schedule that you agree with like your work colleagues. For example, like I'll be available only from like 9 a.m. to like 6 p.m. or 5:30 p.m. something like that, and then just block your calendar for that time to schedule meetings. And then one ritual that I follow is like every time I'm done with work, I just put on my running shoes and then just go out of the house, like take a walk or like just a short run, just so I have like that clear separation. It's like my work is done now, so I need to like ramp down my mind or my thoughts during like running, or I listen to podcasts or music or something like that, just to have like that bridge in between. I think that that has been helping me a lot.
That's a great tip, actually. This creates a clear disconnect between work and life. Yeah, I mean, during COVID, I would say there was a trajectory where my health kind of took a dive, and then I got really healthy after that, because you kind of start figuring out what's the best schedule for you, and you have more flexibility around your day. So I'm back to where I was pre COVID time, because I go into the office multiple times through the week. So there's a lot of sedentary time. So let's talk a bit about immigration, Aston. You and I, we have both been through that, probably at different times. What's your take on that? How does immigration affect one's career and one's career path?
Yeah, I think definitely it has a big impact on your career and the kind of moves you think about making, especially if you're like, pursuing employment-based immigration. A lot of it is out of your hands, honestly, because the best you can do is just hope for the best. Specifically talking about the employment-based route. So I think a lot of it is luck. Like after college, like when you are thinking about transitioning to a work-based visa, like the H-1B. So the H-1B is literally entirely based on luck, right? So you have the US government has like a fixed amount of visas they give out each year. And so like there's a lottery-based system that you have to go through. And that's entirely purely luck, which is unfortunate, I think. But I think it's part of the deal that you have to consider when thinking of moving to this country. Um, yeah, I have many friends that were not able to get through that lottery system, and they had to like pursue like other directions in their lives. But yeah, it's always a talking point when you're trying to think about getting another job, because you have to get the timing right, because of like the different intricacies involved with like the processing times and all of that. The other side is like you have to like constantly maintain your immigration status, and that is not very easy to do at times, because like when you travel outside the country, for example, which I did that recently. So I went to India in March this year, and I had to get my the stamp on my passport updated, and so I had to go. You have to go through this whole process which is now currently taking around 4 to 5 weeks. So things that you have to plan your travel outside the country. You have to always be mindful of maintaining your status, and you have to time things correctly when you want to switch jobs. And this might sometimes affect your career, because there might be a good opportunity that's like a really good fit for you and you want to move, but there's some immigration reason that's stopping you from doing that. So I think, yeah, it definitely plays a big part in your career growth.
I deal with this quite a bit, especially I think during my time at Visa, there was a large amount of international students coming in, or just international employees. I think what I really find weird is you already have a job, but you don't know if you can continue working in that job. You go through the
Hmm.
hassles of getting employed, going through all the hoops, and then to stay employed, there is something that has absolutely no bearing or no connection with your skill or your experience or any of that, right? And
Right.
I'm seeing that recently as well. I hear this whole H1B lottery thing. So what does that mean, right? All right, if you can be out of status and you might have to quit your job and just leave, right? So it's a lose-lose for both the employee and the employer in that sense. So I think hopefully there is reform that happens for the long term, and this is not new. I think I went through this decades ago, and not a lot has changed. In fact, things have kind of gotten worse over time. So hopefully we can see some improvements in the coming years. All right. So okay. So I think we have talked about a lot of stuff. I want to talk a little bit about the fun stuff, right? It's not just work that defines us. There is a lot more to what we do every day, and everything that you see on LinkedIn is so serious. And I want to change it up a little bit and see, if we can give some perspective around all the fun things that we do in our life, in our personal lives. So what does a typical day look like, Stephen? What does your a weekday look like, and then what do you do over weekends?
That is a great question. So I think I have an interesting answer. I don't know if you're going to like my answer here. So for me, my work definitely does define me. On any given day or week, literally all I do is work. Like it's that's just it. But I have kind of an interesting philosophy that I've stolen this from from actually my best friend, and I think it's been really beneficial for me. My best friend Chappie kind of introduced me to this idea where we don't really typically remember the usual kind of weekend stuff people do. Maybe it's like going for a hike, or maybe it's going to a bar, or going to like a party or whatever. Those things are pretty easy to forget and are not that meaningful. But the really meaningful, amazing, fun experiences that are like, once in a lifetime type things, those you do remember and they are very impactful. So for me, my kind of methodology towards my life outside of work is that I don't really do too much on any given week that's fun. Like I don't really go out or that sort of thing. But then a few times a year, I will do like the most fun thing on the planet with my friends, whatever that looks like. And those moments I remember and I cherish way more than, even the accumulation of like, 2 years of going to bars or doing whatever, hanging out at the park, stuff like that. And so for me, it's very much like in extremes where I don't really work too much, but then when I do, it's something absurdly fun. And that's kind of how I operate and how I'm happy. I don't think it works for everyone. I wouldn't even necessarily recommend this, but it definitely works for me.
What was the last fun thing that you did that was absurdly fun?
So I was in Miami for a little bit with my friends, and then we went to Ultra. It's a music festival, and it was just really great to reconnect with old friends, kind of get out of the SF bubble. It's anytime I leave San Francisco, it's like my eyes are always like, oh wow, like this is how the rest of the world lives. There's so much more than just the Bay Area, and so that was really good. Yeah, I'll definitely remember that trip for the rest of my life. It was a good time.
Kind of just make it meaningful, right? Make it last and make it memorable. So, fantastic. What about you,
Definitely.
Ashton? What does a typical day look like for you?
It's pretty boring, to be honest. But I think that changes, like your typical day changes like as you get older. So currently, what my typical day looks like is waking up my son, driving him to daycare, and then just working till the evening. But most times I like just most evenings and weekends we just try to spend as much time as we can with him. Uh, yeah, just basically have fun with him.
Yeah, it sounds like my day, pretty much that's what my day looks like. It's just that I have two of them. So
Yeah.
my wife and I, we have to divvy it up somehow. But as I have grown older, I think my perception of fun has also changed. It has to be quality fun. Back in the, I guess when I was in my 20s, I guess Stephen, you are probably in your 20s. Ashton, you are in your 30s, and I'm in my 40s. So kind of we are a decade apart, right? So we have seen the world a little differently. And when I was in my 20s, one of my mentors, he had told me this thing, and that kind of stuck with me for a long time. Still does. He talked about life, how life is like calling card. I don't know if you know what a calling card is. It's like a prepaid card that you load money on and then you can make a phone call, right? So that was the analogy that he had used. And every single day you make a phone call and there is fewer minutes left on the calling card, right? And eventually you're going to run out. So that is what life is, right? And the same gentleman, he had said this as well, where if you're a healthy person in your adult life, you get probably a good 50 years where you can do fun stuff, right? um, and that translates to roughly about 2,500 weeks of life that is given to you. And if you prioritize your weekend in a certain way, that's about 2,500 weekends. So probably in my case, maybe I have 500 or 700, who knows, right? That left. So that's how I kind of look at it. So there are two things, that I kind of take seriously. One is just take fun seriously, and then take your work seriously as well when you're working. I feel that there has to be clear separation between that. I try not to mix fun and work together, because I get a little frustrated when work gets in the way of having fun and fun gets in the way of doing focused work and meaningful work. All right. So last thing before we say goodbye, Slack or Teams?
Slack.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, definitely Slack. Definitely Slack. I think Slack has gotten to the point where it's almost like a no-code platform in many ways. We use Slack for all sorts of internal functions, notifications, alerts if like there's a bug. It's crucial to how we operate. Slack Connect is crucial for staying connected to our customers. We have Slack Connects with all of our service providers. So anytime there's a bug, we just message them there. I love Slack. We live and die by it.
Nice.
Yeah, also like the uh, extensibility that Slack offers, like you can program bots to like let you know, like alert you if your system is down, or like alert you if there's a PR that's open that needs review, stuff like that also helps a lot.
Yeah, I mean, we use it for monitoring alerts sometimes. You just get a
Hmm.
Slack, and it's near real time for the most part, and it's great. You don't need to rely on any other ways of getting alerted. So, okay. Netflix shows. What are you watching?
Um, I just finished watching Three Body Problem,
That was going to be
which
mine. Yeah. Okay. Good.
I would highly
Good pick.
recommend people, yeah, watching that. Yeah, I actually read the books, so I was really looking forward to the Netflix show. But I think it was pretty good, well made. Currently, I'm watching Ripley. It's
Okay.
about a person who is sent to Italy to. I don't want to reveal too much, but it's
Okay.
like pretty well done.
Okay. Stephen.
That was a really good show. We actually got like a projector and a projector screen to watch it on. So we were watching on a massive, I don't even know, like 90-inch screen. It was a great time. I love any of the business documentaries on Netflix. I'm kind of nerdy and like that's what I enjoy to like wind down and watch. So like a Bernie Madoff entry or like things of that variety, I really enjoy.
There is a lot of great content, lots of good documentaries on Netflix. My son is addicted to them for whatever reason. Okay, so three
They're
body
so good.
problem and then some documentaries. Okay. And last question, three things that you cannot live without.
Ooh, that's a great question. I can go first.
One
So,
thing. Let's start with one thing.
I would say two of them. Okay, do we, if we want a popcorn style, I was going to say both my things are actually on my wrist. So I always wear a Whoop. I think Whoops are crucial for me. I take my health really seriously, try to prioritize my sleep and go to the gym each day. So this is like how I stay accountable. And then another thing is I always wear like a old fashioned watch over an Apple Watch. And I love this because I can like discreetly check the time in meetings without being rude, like especially in person meetings. When you move into the startup world, I feel like a lot more of your meetings become in person and you can't just kind of like move your mouse cursor over like the top bar and see what time it is. I always wear a watch so I can like not in a rude way know like if I'm on schedule and make sure I'm not late to anything. And then I can't have an Apple Watch because I'd be too distracted by it. I have like enough distraction with my phone. I don't need another screen. So these are two big things for me. Ashton, I don't know if you want to go. I'll have to think of what my third is.
Yeah, even I can't think of three things. One is
One thing
definitely
that's
like
not a
my
smartphone.
yeah, one is definitely smartphone. because you just need to have one, especially me, because like it's the only way I get to stay in touch like with my family overseas. And then the other one is probably just having family with me at all times.
Great answer. Awesome, guys. This has been fantastic. I think we talked a lot about lots of things. I just wanted to, one is, thank you both for your time. You both are doing amazing things, and we should do this again. I wasn't sure how this would go for the first time. I have never done something like this, but I think I had a great time. I hope you two had a great time as well. Stephen, all the best with Revamp and Gen AI Collective. Ashton, all the best with your future endeavors at Square. And thank you again for your time. Anything that you want to say before we say goodbye?
Awesome. Well, Praveen, thank you so much for the opportunity. Definitely the highlight of my day. It's nice when I have time kind of set aside in the day to talk with friends as opposed to just coding or trying to sell. So this was definitely a highlight of my day. Would love to run this back and maybe do a part two. I feel like Ashton and I could talk on for hours about our careers. So definitely a lot more wisdom to share in the future.
I was just going to say, like, thanks, Praveen, for doing this and for the opportunity to be part of this. So it was nice to kind of do some thinking and share like whatever experience I've been through. So it was nice talking to you and Stephen as well.
Yeah, it's been such a pleasure. Where can folks find you?
LinkedIn is the best place. I think you can just look me up, Ashton Mendes. On LinkedIn.
Yep, and Stephen Campbell, Stephen with a PH. Yeah, love connecting with people on LinkedIn.
Thank you, guys. It's been really great, and I hope you have a great weekend. So, thank you.
Thanks for being here.
You want it, gotta work for that bag, go get it one day, you can brag. You want it, gotta work for that bag, go get it one day, you can brag. I say that I have it, you know that I got it, no need to look all in the bag. Stunting like this cause I work so hard, I'm the best, I only speak facts. In the store, I'm popping them tags, a limited ceiling with stag. Clout chasing for the cash grab, I don't really want it that bad. If I say that I have it, you know that I got it, no need to look all in the bag. Stunting like this cause I work so hard, I'm the best, I only speak facts. In the store, I'm popping them tags, a limited ceiling with stag. Clout chasing for the cash grab, I don't really want it that bad. I'm trying to cop a milli while I keep my soul intact. Been through a lot, I learned to adapt. Never let struggles make me snap. Around the world, about to be on maps. Got a cute face, but it seemed like a trap. Pockets on glow, soul on no. In a chateau, counting that big dough. Your spirit on the gurney, about to plateau. Snake in the grass, reap what you sow. Lurking in leaves, hiding in trees. Spotlight on now, you can't sneak. Lip online, now you can't speak. You a real one out here moving weak. Private jet, don't take care of your seat. Audacity, two-step to me. You want it, gotta work for that bag. Go get it one day, you can brag. You want it, gotta work for that bag. Go get it one day, you can brag. You want it, gotta work for that bag. Go get it one day, you can brag. You want it, gotta work for that bag. Go get it one day, you can brag. I say that I have it, you know that I got it. No need to look all in the bag. Stunting like this cause I work so hard, I'm the best, I only speak facts. In the store, I'm popping them tags, a limited ceiling with stag. Clout chasing for the cash grab, I don't really want it that bad. No rollie on wrist, but it is my time. Diamond out the mud, yes, in her prime. Supernova, can't block my shine. 10-hour days, can't top my grind. Cross on neck, this is my sign. Knowing the move cause I am divine. Got big chalice, bring me wine. Yo, AI looks made in design. In real life, I am so fine. Cozy feet up and recline. Something different you can't define. Bad vibes, I don't subscribe. Real ones only by my side. Stay humble, don't die with pride. Pride, pride, pride. Get it one day, you can brag. You want it, gotta work for that bag. Go get it one day, you can brag. You want it, gotta work for that bag. Go get it one day, you can brag. You want it, gotta work for that bag. Go get it one day, you can brag.